Good morning. It's Monday, and we're going to do Granny Shares the Bible. I'm just digging in Exodus for the second time. This is chapter 2. Let's start in verse 1. And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. Now, who is this Levi? One of the tribes of Jacob, one of his sons. And Levi proves to be somebody important as we read through Exodus. He didn't seem too important in Genesis. It seemed like Joseph was the main focus, and Benjamin, sometimes Judah. But Levi and Simeon were cruel. They had done something awful because of Dinah, their sister. But here this starts with the tribe of Levi, of the house of Levi. And this man he was of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bare a son, and when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. Now, if you remember Saturday when I read that Pharaoh had charged all of God's people, saying, every son that is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. So this woman was not going to cast this boy into the river. She saw he was a goodly child. He looked cute. No way am I throwing this cute little boy in the river. And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. So the bulrushes, the flags, that was the kind of things that grew up out of the river. They're in the river Nile. The Nile River is a very famous river over there in Egypt, and this was the Nile River. And she made her an ark. Now, that word ark is very much biblical, right? Who made another ark in Genesis? Yes, Noah did. Only it was not just small for a baby. It was huge for all the animals, the types of animals, and for Noah and his family. And it saved them. Now, look at this ark. It's going to save him. Hallelujah. Moses. Of course, he doesn't have a name yet. It's just the baby. Going to save this cute little baby that the daughter of Levi did not want to throw in the river. Now, is she obeying? She put him in the river. She just put him in something that would protect him. She actually did obey. She did cast him into the river. She did. She did actually obey Pharaoh. But she didn't just cast him into the river without any protection. And I want you to remember that sometimes. Sometimes to do what we ought to do, we might do it, but we make provision for it too. And God helps us. God helps us to do what we need to do, but also to what needs to be done to protect us and protect our own. And so she did that. She put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. I put him in the river. And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. You know, wit is another form of the word know, to find out what would be done to him. Verse 5. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the river's side. So it's probably just a normal day with Pharaoh's daughter. And I don't know, it's hard to imagine her coming to the river to wash herself, but maybe she just enjoyed that. She probably could have washed herself in the palace, but maybe she just was the kind of woman that enjoyed going down by the river. And she had all her maidens along with her. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. Now, flags just means those bulrushes that were growing up in the river. It's not that they were real, like, man-made flags. And she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child. Opened it. She didn't just make an open ark. That's what you really usually see drawn for children's literature. It's just an ark that's the baby, you can see the baby in when you look. But no, this said when she opened it. So Moses' mother had made him a very protective ark. Protected from sunburn. Oh, can you imagine her making that ark? Putting her baby in the river, making that ark, trying to make it as protective as she possibly can for him, and not really knowing what's going to happen to him. But his sister was watching. And so Pharaoh's daughter, when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child. And behold, the babe wept. Now, I wish I could look like a little newborn baby or 3-month-old baby. Wah, 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 kicking his feet and pumping his little fists. Wah, wah. And she had compassion on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Well, the right Pharaoh's daughter, wasn't it? Isn't that wonderful? We look back and we see Moses' grandmother back there, where it was the right woman that came to the well when Eliezer was there wanting him to send Isaac a wife. The right woman came. God has his ways, doesn't he? He orders people's steps. And he said the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. That's what I preached yesterday morning. God gave that to me to preach. And so here's this Pharaoh's daughter. She must have been a good woman, because he ordered her steps and ordered her heart to feel compassion for that little baby. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter. So she kind of walked up when she saw Pharaoh's daughter opening that ark. And she heard what she said. "Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the maid went and called the child's mother. This is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. God just had it planned, didn't he? I mean, wonderfully planned for this child. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, "Take this child away." Wait, I missed the scripture. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, the child's mother, "Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages." And the woman took the child and nursed it. Did she ever? It was about time for her to nurse, wouldn't you think? Oh my. Probably just in time. That's why while the baby was weeping, because it's time for me to eat. Where's my mommy? Oh, sweet this is. All right, now, verse 10. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter. So, Pharaoh's daughter let the child's mother, keep him. And he was protected. He wasn't to be thrown into the river anymore. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses. And she said, "Because I drew him out of the water." Moses is so famous, isn't he? All over the world. He's so famous. And we all know him by that name, Moses, because I drew him out of the water. So I know that some Jewish boys are named Moses, and I think it's called Moshe. And it's for after Moses. But he was the first one because he was drawn out of the water. And it came to pass, verse 11, in those days when Moses was grown, so we don't get to hear about all of his life in the palace after that, but I do not know how old the child was when he was weaned and when she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter. I don't know, but I can tell you this: Mama was teaching him about who he was. Right? Mama knew that she had to give him up, but she didn't have to let him be ignorant of him being a Hebrew and him being Levi's son and him being Aaron's brother and him being Miriam's brother and him knowing his daddy. You know, he knew. I'm sure he knew who he was. And so he was grown. It came to pass in those days when Moses was grown that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens. What do you think about that? He knew they were his brethren because they were slaves. Pharaoh had made them slaves. Pharaoh had made them slaves. Look back. And they had made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in bricking and all manner of service in the field. All their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. They were slaves. And he went out and he saw his brethren. And I don't know what he thought about him being in the palace and them being slaves, but he looked on their burdens. So he saw what they were going through. And he spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Okay, now, there is something that's spoken of in Hebrews. I want us to go over there and look, because it gives us a little light on this in the book of Hebrews in the New Testament, in chapter 11, I believe it is. Let's look over it. It talks about Moses in chapter 11. And let's start in verse 23. I'd like for us to look at that as we go through the story of Moses. Hebrews 11 and 23. It says, by faith Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents because that they saw he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. So they hid him for 3 months, and it says not just his mother hid him, but his parents, so his daddy too. By faith Moses, when he was come to years, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season, esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in Egypt, for he had respect unto the recompense of the reward. By faith he forsook Egypt, not fearing the wrath of the king, for he endured as seeing him who is invisible. Okay, so it goes on down to talk about him and all that he helped the people to do. But there was one place in here that I was looking for and I did not see it. Let me look now. Because it said that, let me see if I can find it. Verse 24. Psalm 84 and 10. Let me look there. Psalm 84. There was one point there I was going to make, 84 and 10. Nope, that was good though. It says, for a day in thy courts is better than 1,000. I had rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of wickedness. So yes, Moses chose not to stay a son of Pharaoh. He didn't choose to be an Egyptian. But what I was looking for and I didn't find, and I'll have to look it up, or you may look it up if you will for me, that where he said that, and I know where it is, it's in Acts when it was Stephen talking about it. It just came across my mind. Acts chapter, let's see where we're talking about Stephen. 7, was it? 7? Yes. All right. When Stephen was talking about Moses, let's look at verse 37. This is that Moses which said unto the children of Israel, Prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto you of your brethren like unto me, him shall ye hear. This is he that was in the church in the wilderness with the angel which spake to him in Mount Sinai, and with our fathers who received the lively oracles to give unto us. Let me see where I wanted to tell you about. I wanted to say where Moses, here we go, here it is, verse 27. It's talking about him killing the Egyptian. Verse 24. And seeing one of them suffered wrong, he defended him and avenged him that was oppressed, and smote the Egyptian. For he supposed his brethren would have understood how that God by his hand would deliver them, but they understood not. Now, Moses already knew that he had an anointing, that he had something to do. We will talk about that tomorrow. I'm already over time. Or not over time, but I've already gone far enough today. So tomorrow we will talk about what Moses thought. What Bible seems to make us think that Moses thought he was going to deliver his brethren. Let's think about that. Okay, I will see you tomorrow. God bless you.